back to Doctor Who, back to all of time and space, and back to you, the expanded Doctor Who universe. Here we are coming to you in an enhanced version. Simon, have you ever been enhanced before?
I'm not sure as I have. Is it painful?
No, I haven't either, but I get the emails quite a lot. Well, I've until I get the first formal complaint, though, I've decided to just leave that. But yeah, here we go. What we've decided to do in this last portion of the podcast, we've been talking about our wonderful love of Target books stretching across the decades, and it seems a little unfair on us as well as you to have talked about all this stuff and not had a good look and compared and done a bit of a show and tell. I've been thinking I've been making a few videos from time to time already, so we thought, what about make this a Type 40, Type Over 40 combination and try and get... I'll speak to you all here on camera. Wave at the lovely people, Simon. Here we are. Of course, we're going to make this work because it's still part of the Type 40 podcast. We're going to explain to you what we're looking at, but this is to jog our memories as much as it is yours. So, first of all, Simon, as I'm
yes,
Simon now, some of you might be able to see if you're watching this either on YouTube or in the Type 40 fandom group. Simon, you're surrounded by wonderful Target artwork now. Do you want to explain where all this comes from? Because the frame stuff and tell us about it all.
Yeah, well, it is just my absolute obsession with Target art, and I'm happy to admit that I do have an obsession with Target art. None of them are original, unfortunately. I'm enormously jealous of all of those people that have those original artworks. They are brilliant. But no, I love my Target art, and so yeah, I've got my office, my little geek den. I've got some framed pictures of the Cummins artwork, the Talons of Weng Chiang, Horror Fang Rock, Face of Evil. Those are all up on the wall. And one of my other favourite artists is Roy Knipe. So we've got the brilliant Death to the Daleks, the Time Warrior. I think just over my shoulder there, I can see it's the Android Invasion. Yeah. And I just love this art, and I love the Chris Achilleos. I've got a load of Chris Achilleos artwork as well. Of course, again, as you rightly said, how can you not love Chris Achilleos if you love Doctor Who? Again, they go hand in hand. And so all of these I've just sort of collected over the years from various conventions and stuff. When these days, often Jeff Cummins will go to a convention and will sell his prints. You can buy them online. So here's a little bit of an advertising plug for people. The Roy Knipe you can only get from Who Dares. That's where all those prints have come from.
Individually or in a portfolio? Do they come? Do you have to buy them?
Those came in a very expensive portfolio. You can still buy it, or at least you could when I last looked a month or so ago. So go and have a look at Who Dares Publishing. And Who Dares Publishing, of course, is Andrew Skilleter, who used to do a lot of the Target covers back in the 80s. So he now runs, he always did run Who Dares, but he now has expanded it and includes art by other Doctor Who artists. So they've got a Chris Achilleos portfolio as well, I think. But go and have a look at Who Dares Publishing. And they've got some fantastic stuff there. The quality of these prints are just brilliant. Death to the Daleks still remains just one of the best book covers, of all time, I would say. I don't know what your thoughts are, Dan.
On camera, those colours really, really pop, and you can hear just in your holding it that's printed on really good quality card stuff.
They're really good quality prints, and it's a lovely portfolio. So I would highly recommend it to anybody to go and get
framed ones. Do you rotate the ones you put in the frames, or are those your personal favourites?
Yes,
forever be.
Yeah, no, I rotate them. Up until a couple of months ago, I had Chris Achilleos up there, and I say now I've got Jeff Cummins, and I've only recently got the latest portfolio, the Roy Knipe portfolio, so I'll change those at some point. But I do rotate them. What I would like, of course, is a room big enough to just literally plaster it with Target book covers. And some of the Chris Achilleos prints again are just stunning. If you can afford the, I think they're quite expensive. They're about £45 for the absolute top of the range ones, or there are cheaper ones. I think for about £30. but they're still fantastic. And again, Chris Achilleos sells them on his website. So go and have a look.
I know that you can get. I still see from time to time that people have got the entire proofs of the front, back cover, and the spine. They might have got those framed as well, and they look nice too. You know, sometimes they get them signed, but there's something about that artwork with lots of room to breathe in and around it. The likenesses are incredible. They're that evocative, and they're. I suppose it's a style now, painted artwork, which you and I are both big fans of traditional artwork, which is sort of sadly fallen by the wayside. Even on book covers, really, to the extent of this amount of artistry. This isn't an advert for Who Dares. We don't get a cut. Andrew, if you're watching this, if you're listening to us, maybe something could be arranged. Because I love your product line too. I was just about to rave about.
Send us some freebies. Send us some freebies.
I've got my Target logo badge on as we speak. That was also from Who Dares. There we are. So yeah, who knows?
Other publishers are available.
Publishers are available, but this is it. I mean, this is if you said the books, we were talking earlier on the podcast about how the books for you are absolutely run a parallel line with the TV show. It's obviously stands to reason that you're going to have those. That at some point they're going to be pride of place. Where are your books actually displayed? Or where have you been?
I've still got all of my Target collection. That is all on the bookshelves. I still have those out. You say that you've rescued yours from the loft. But the difference is for me, you see, and this is heartbreaking for me, is none of my Target collection is my original collection. It's all books that I've bought since, because I got rid of my entire Target collection back in the early 90s.
Breathe.
Oh, I'm still going through therapy, Dan, for it. I'm still dealing with it. I'm assuming, are all of your Target books they're your original books then, I'm assuming, are they?
They are indeed, and for your viewing pleasure, I'm about to show you some of that now.
Go on then, let's have a look at some of your original books. I'm extremely jealous that you've got all your originals. I don't own a single original Target book. Every one of mine has been bought since. So, I'm go on. Yeah, go on.
It started with this. I'm afraid, we're just talking about the beautiful artwork, but for me, it started with the photo cover. So that's the very first one I ever bought from Firely.
Weren't they awful, those photo covers?
Yeah. Well, to me, I think
they were so disappointing.
But it says a BBC TV programme with Peter Davison as the Doctor. It's sort of in a flash across the front cover. But yeah, the visitation cover. It was the first one I ever saw, let alone coveted. And there's no date inside. There's just my handwriting there saying in case I took it into school and someone else pinched it. I wrote in the number when I found out what that was. And it's all looking slightly yellow because it was well read and well loved. But yeah, I think that was in the summer of 1982. I think I bought that. And the next one I had was another of the latter ones, again with the neon logo. It's Logopolis by Christopher H. Bidmead. Beautiful cover if people aren't aware of it. It's a portrait of Anthony Ainley's master by Andrew Skilleter. One of his finest, I think. It's certainly one of the best likenesses. And I'd seen this story twice. Once when it had been on originally, then once in the Five Faces of Doctor Who. And it was the story that turned me into a fan. How could I not want Logopolis? So that was the second one I ever had, and that does bear the date inside that it was bought in my own
19th of December 1982.
That's
Look
right.
at that.
Yeah, he didn't read his mind.
See, I'd love to be able to have my original books. I never wrote into anything.
The idea that this is coming up to nearly 37 years since I bought this, scary. And the third one that I found, I'm not going to go through my entire collection like this, but this ties in nicely because it's one of the ones that you have behind you now. One of the ones that Simon has as framed.
Oh.
And it's also one of my favourite ever covers. Is the Invisible Enemy.
Ah, the Invisible Enemy. That is such a good piece of artwork.
I don't think anybody captured Tom Baker's likeness better. than that. And
no, I would agree. I remember literally sort of poring over that cover, just in awe at the detailing. I mean, you can literally see the weave of the tweed on the coat. It's just the most incredible likeness that you've ever seen, as you say, Tom Baker.
And it was for the princely sum of £1.25, which would have certainly have been a week and a bit's pocket money for me. And that was on the 29th of January 1983. So it was still early days of my fandom. Really, that was before even the Five Doctors was broadcast. And I continued with picking up Death of the Daleks. That's with that explosive cover. How could you not want that? Everybody wants a Dalek story at some point. And backwards in time into the second Doctor's era there with Doctor Who and the Cybermen by Jerry Davis, a really thick book where I think he's referred to as Doctor Who in that too, which I found.
And you see, and one of the things that I love about that particular one that you're showing there, the Cybermen, and in fact all of those early Cybermen books, I loved as a fan the fact that the first page of them had the creation of the Cybermen as a little potted history of how the Cybermen. Well, that had nothing. You didn't get that in the television show, and so to have that little potted history of how the Cybermen were created, and I can still remember it saying that the Cybermen had the strength of 10 men. It was just a brilliant way to excite a 10-year-old, was that creation of the Cybermen. Because again, we're talking the days before the weekly, I had nothing at all about the history of the Cybermen. So to read that little potted history was just fantastic.
Yeah, it felt like you were entering another whole world, really, and they were pinning it down. They were embedding it for you. I mean, this edition was 1981. It's been out several times before with different artwork. At least it was the correct Cyberman.
Yes,
I think it was. Yeah, and this sort of worked its way to a head, really. I suppose with a lot of people in the run up to the 20th anniversary special. I'd seen it on TV on Friday the 25th of November 1993. The Five Doctors when that debuted.
83.
I went into Cradley Heath Town Centre, which if you haven't been there, you're not missing a great deal, in the West Midlands where I live. And just into a tiny little newsagent, this was one of the Stars newsagents family. And I remember this moment, staring up at their bookshelf. They'd not got many books. This is crazy. They'd not got many books, but they were right at the top. I saw glimmering the silver foil cover to the Five Doctors. The very first edition. It came out several times afterwards with different flashes on. And a 20th anniversary special. It's actually got first edition on the cover in a little ribbon along the bottom. But this cover, it really is a thing of beauty. And I did, even though I'd recorded it on VHS, which I would never have taped over, I've still got it on VHS. I did read this from cover to cover, and there's the date inside there. Sure enough.
What date was that? The 26th of November, 83.
It went straight in there, and yeah, it's.
So did you buy that then on the day of transmission?
It was the day after transmission.
Sorry, you're quite right.
I hear it had been in the shops earlier that week, apparently. But
apparently so. I've heard this. I did not find it. I didn't see it in the shops the week before. What I did interestingly see in the shops the week before it was shown was that An Unearthly Child, when they showed that as part of the Five Faces of Doctor Who season back in November 81. Yeah, I think it was November 81, wasn't it, that Five Faces of Doctor Who. And An Unearthly Child, the novelisation of that, came out the week before transmission, as I recall, of the repeat. So that was exciting for me to get An Unearthly Child. And again, it's a beautiful cover. I think that's Andrew Skilleter. I don't know. But again, it's a beautiful cover on the front of An Unearthly Child.
Because they'd gone to put that out a couple of times, hadn't they? Because I think the original cover for Keys of Marinus was supposed to be An Unearthly Child's cover originally. I can't really remember.
Okay.
If I've got a favourite cover that we haven't talked about, if we're not talking about Andrew Skilleter, it's probably I think the artist is Tony Mazzero. I can never remember.
Oh yes.
But it's this one, the cover to the Time.
Yeah, that is Tony Mazzero.
I've always loved this. I've always loved the
And that's your favourite cover, isn't that funny?
It's probably is.
That amazed me because that wouldn't leap out to me at all.
And the reason why I like it so much is that I think it's the subtlety of it. It looks very little like Peter Butterworth as the meddling monk, who in the Time meddler on the artwork. But if you go in sort of close, you'll see there that he's wearing that digital watch, and it's just sort of glinting out there. I just says, and there's a Viking ship disappearing into the background. It just says so much, the subtlety in that. It's always been maybe not the favourite, but a favourite, which I feel deserved a little more time in the sun there.
One of my absolute favourites still remains the Talons of Wen Chiang by Jeff Cummins. Well, it is. I mean, it is literally photographic in its detail. I still, again, as a child, I can remember just literally sitting and obsessing over Tom Baker's gloves in it, because it's just incredible that Jeff Cummins literally managed to draw silk gloves that look as though they were photographed yesterday. The detail in it is literally breathtaking. And as you say, you and I both love original art, and you can't do that digitally. It doesn't matter how much you manipulate stuff in Photoshop. It's just a work of utter
And
genius.
he was a very young man. A lot of these guys, they were really, really young at the time. Andrew Skilleter, Chris Kilios was unbelievably young. And I noticed that with Jeff Cummins being back on the convention circuit now, and you think, oh, this guy, he's probably coming up to 70. So when you do the sums, do you think he must have been in his late 20s? He must be really, really young when he painted these. You know, I consider them next to masterpieces, certainly of illustration.
I would agree.
You know, I don't want to dab faint praise. This is not to do fine art down, but, you know, in terms of commercial art and illustration, these things are just wonderful. Wonderful, wonderful. Talking about the artwork, I want to get this in before we... Oh, go on, sorry, you bring...
No, go on. I was just going to show Death to the Daleks again and say, how could anybody not want that on their wall as a piece of pop art? At the end of the day, it is pop art. Anyway, go on.
We would be remiss. Somebody who loves my videos. He's a big member of the Type 40 Facebook group, big supporter, and an old friend of both ours, Pete Warbank. How could I possibly close this out without bringing out the Pescatons here? Pete Warbank, who painted this cover for late in the run. It was number 153 in the target line, and there's his Pescatons work. I know he doesn't like looking at his old work, but tough. You have to come and find me.
I agree. Pete is a fantastic guy. He's done some really, really good artwork. I think he's very, very embarrassed by that cover, but which is a shame, because I think it's a...
Don't be.
Absolutely, I still think it's a fantastic cover. I think it's brilliant in that it captures perfectly the style of the Target imprint. It looks perfect on a Target cover. It's exactly what Target is meant to be. I think it's a great piece of artwork.
What's to be embarrassed about, Pete?
Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he loves it. Maybe I'm putting him down, but I'm sure I remember him saying he was embarrassed by it.
Embarrassing me, Adley. Stop embarrassing me. What else have you got there?
Well, I mean, I've got things like, you know, we haven't talked that much about Chris Achilleos, and we can't talk about Target without talking about Chris Achilleos. And so things like, you know, the Three Doctors, the original cover for the Three Doctors. Again, it's just simply stunning. I know he's copied the hands. Famously, he's copied the hands from a comic book. I can't remember which comic book it is that he's copied them from.
I did see that recently again.
But I'm going to let him off, because again, it's just a stunning piece of art. What I like about Chris Achilleos is we've praised all the others quite rightly. But the difference with Chris Achilleos is he's got an incredibly unique style. There isn't another artist that creates art like Chris Achilleos, in the way that, you know, what would make you think, oh, I know what I'll do to this cover. I'll put it all in colour, but I'll do the pictures of the Doctor in black and white. Why would you do that? Logically, so many of his book covers have the Doctor in a black and white pencil sketch. Sort of dot artwork, and it's just a really strange decision, and it's utter genius. It works brilliantly because whilst the Doctor is still very, very clearly central to the cover, and you immediately see the Doctor because he's black and white amongst all the colour work, so it's not undermining the Doctor.
Yeah.
But then what it then subsequently does is it then also emphasizes the villain or the monster as well in such a brilliant way. So both of them get their way to shine on a cover. It's just a brilliant, brilliant decision on his part. And as I say, what would make you do it? Nobody would logically say, oh, I think I'll do the central character, the Doctor, in black and white. And I'll do the rest in colour.
I suppose because they're paperback books as well, and we've both been doing it. In fact, we can hold these books in the palm of our hands like that quite nicely. It's a small area to convey all that story and to be so potent. And like you say, it's knowing your craft, knowing what to bring to the foreground, what to push to the back, and both elements seem to hit the viewer at the same time. It's a mild stroke of genius, to the point where in the reissues, I noticed when they've done the recent 2 lines, haven't they? Various titles, even with books that have got paintings which have stood the test of time. A lot of Alistair Pearson stuff has stood the test of time. They've replaced some of that with new artwork, which is more in line with that classic style to fit the classic masthead logo that they've employed on these new books. And I was thinking specifically of the recent one by Russell T Davies, Rose, and that's definitely. I think some of them, I believe some of them are by Chris Achilles. He's somewhere along the line. He has returned to the range, but I'm not sure exactly which ones. But again, you've got Chris Eccleston there in black and white again. Various other elements swirling around. I suspect photography has been involved somewhere more along the lines there. But the effect is, illustration, and the effect is exactly the same. And this was a gift from a very close friend of mine, so I wanted to make sure I got that in too. But yeah, these it's nice to see just that logo back there in the corner.
Isn't that brilliant? Doesn't that send a little thrill through you? But the other stuff that Chris Achilles did so well was sort of the electrical fire bolts.
Yeah.
I mean, again, the Ice Warriors is often picked out as one of the best covers from Target, and quite rightly so, because it's stunning, and the electrical fire, these electric charges that are whizzing around. I mean, it literally makes the cover feel tangible. And this was a real hallmark of his, doing these little electrical fire bolts everywhere. Again, all over the Daleks cover, you've got little planets whizzing, little electric things fizzing away. So the covers literally fizz with energy. The guy is a genius.
Do you think it's because Chris Achilles? Is he Greek?
Yes, Greek.
Yeah, and
certainly Greek parentage. Yes,
and it reminds me of the Continental comic strips. That way of illustration in the 50s and the 60s, you see a lot of it, and I think it was picked up on by an artist called Frank Hampson, who used to draw for Eagle and paint for the Eagle to a certain extent, but more with Doctor Who terms by Frank Bellamy, who would create those illustrations for the Radio Times. And they also, I'm trying to think who came first. I know Frank Bellamy used to also work for the Eagle, I think, and for the Look and Learn children's paper. So I do wonder who came first, who picked up what from who.
I'll have to look that one up. They're very, very close together. I'm trying to think when the first Frank Bellamy artwork would have arrived.
He used to make the Times. Yes, he used to put those black and white line illustrations together, didn't he, for the Radio Times? It would have been around the same time.
Yeah, it was very, very close. I'd have to look that one up. I'm not sure who would have come first out of Frank Bellamy and Chris Achilles, but they're very, very close.
I could quite easily do another one.
We'll do another one on Frank Bellamy. We can do a whole podcast on Frank Bellamy because, again, it's brilliant artwork. But again, the Dalek Invasion of Earth, which was one, again, that was the first Target book that I bought. Well, be honest, the cover is way better than the TV show. Don't get me wrong, I love the TV show, but doesn't the Chris Achilles artwork? It looks like an epic space battle. I mean, it's just phenomenal.
It looks like Blake 7, doesn't it? With the military, because of course the most
I guess so.
Straight from the movie version rather than from the
Absolutely.
TV version.
He's taken it from the movie version, and so it does. It looks like a space movie. It's way better than the TV story could ever hope. And that of course is what the beauty of the best Target covers was they made the what is quite a creaky TV program look phenomenal. I mean, again, the 10th Planet. You don't get anything like that in the 10th Planet.
Yeah, the 10th,
it's what you want to see.
Book. That was a favourite of mine. I know you said it was your very first. It was a favourite of mine.
Absolutely.
When I first saw it, I'd realised I'd committed the name of the story to memory as being the last, the first regeneration story, and those Cybermen, seeing them back a couple of years ago, I think a lot of the thrill of that for me comes from hankering for that book and looking at the illustration, because there are some illustrations actually inside some of these early Target books. I'm sure some of you remember, you've seen, but I didn't know which ones had them and which ones didn't. They certainly would never be a factor in me buying them, as beautiful as a lot of them were and are. I saw some on I think it was on Instagram a few weeks ago, and they really struck me of how they again are products of their time. They're very 1960s, but beautiful, dainty. They remind me of children's books, and yet there's so much copy, so much text around them in comparison with a lot of children's books.
And again, those illustrations, some of which were Chris Achilleos, a lot of them were Alan Willow, and again, they just make the TV program look a lot better than it actually was. If you look, for example, at the illustration in The Curse of Peladon, where Grun is fighting the Doctor, it's a million times better than it ever was on television. Alan Willow, I think it's Alan Willow that did those, draws the Doctor and Grun in this huge Roman gladiatorial arena. It's phenomenal. And again, the dinosaur invasion.
Well, we couldn't really talk about Target with getting clacking, could we? That's iconic,
absolutely.
isn't it? That's probably the iconic Target cover now.
I would totally agree. And again, what would make you put clack on the front cover? Why would you do it? Nobody would do it. But again, it's a brilliant piece of pop art, and so it can't be underestimated.
No other cover includes comic book style lettering like that, does it, that I can think of? No other Doctor Who.
That's right. That's the only one. That's the only one. But it is utter genius, and again, it just makes what a very, very poor very poor dinosaurs on television look truly stunning. And so, of course, the irony of all of this is that it did, certainly for me, and I'm guessing you are the same, in that you must have read a lot of these Target books before you then saw the television version. And so often, the television version was something of a disappointment after you'd either seen the Target cover,
sometimes,
or you'd read. I mean, I'm going to read you, if I may. I'm going to read you out here a tiny little bit from Dalek Invasion of Earth, my first book, the Target book that I bought. This is Terence Dix's description of the slither. Whether it was the sound of their voices or the scent of the food they were eating, they never knew, but something led the slither to their hut. Suddenly there was a shattering roar and the door burst open. It was there, filling the doorway. They cowered back as the terrible, bulging shape slithered towards them. I mean, let's be honest. Ian saw a vast, lumpy blob of a body, powerful, flailing tentacles, tiny, deep-set eyes shining with malice. Moving incredibly fast, the creature lurched towards them. Well, anybody that's seen the Dalek Invasion of Earth will know that is not remotely what the slither looks like on television. It's way better.
I could go and watch that now quite happily.
But it's odd, isn't it? Because I was then phenomenally disappointed with watching the Dalek Invasion of Earth, because when you actually see the slither, it's rubbish. Here's another one. If I can read you this one. This is from an absolute favourite. This is from the Three Doctors. Right, where is it? Here we go. hold on, where's it got to? In the front of them, the grey desert had levelled out, and there, in the middle distance, stood a towering castle. It seemed to have been beaten from solid brass. You'll like this bit, hundreds of towers and slender minarets glinted dully beneath the lowering purple sky, giving the whole palace a look of oriental opulence like the Arabian Nights castle of some caliph. The massive main gates were open. Inside, they could see only blackness. Well, you know, again, it's way better than anything you saw on television. And so to go back and then see those on TV can almost be something of a disappointment sometimes.
I think this is the suspending one's disbelief, which we're pretty practiced at as Doctor Who fans. And
I do remember. Absolutely, but that's why it's interesting that I read all these books. I read that of Omega's Palace, and so when I actually saw it on TV, it's something of disappointment. But it doesn't matter because you're getting to see that you see it on television. The one thing I remember being really miffed. This is the only book that ever really miffed me, and this is the Rebus Operation.
Oh, Ian Martin.
And I love Ian Martin as a novelist. I love him. And his novel of the Sontaran Experiment, actually, to backtrack for a second, the Sontaran Experiment is utter brilliance. It's one of the best books in the range, I would say.
I remember him as being one of the more adult writers.
Correct. He's very florid.
Yeah,
he's very florid in his style. In one of them, I can't remember which one. In one of them, he either uses the word bloody or bastard. I can't remember.
Oh, really?
But yeah, one of them he's quite strong in. And the Reign of Terror is quite horrific. There's some quite unpleasant descriptions in that. And the Sontaran Experiment is brilliant because he compares style throughout. It's largely written almost from the perspective of Harry, and he compares style to Golem, the 1915 horror film from German expressionistic cinema. Well, that's quite going it, son. Yeah, you got to hand it to the guy. And it was brilliant because I knew who the Golem was as a horror film fan, even as a 10-year-old. I knew who the Golem was. So as soon as he described him, I'm like, I get that. But he really disappointed me in the Rebus Operation because I was really completely confused because this is the point when the Doctor goes to meet the White Guardian, and the line says the Doctor cautiously turning the brass door handle of the TARDIS. This is the inside. This is inside the control room. A high-pitched shriek split the air as the door opened on its dry hinges, and I was just really miffed by this. I was like, the TARDIS doesn't have a brass handle. And I remember reading and rereading that passage so many times and thinking, am I misunderstanding him? Is he not inside the TARDIS? So Ian Martin took sort of liberties in some ways. But again, that was just part of the joy of these books. It was the
fact that they were given that sort of leeway to do that. It's one thing to say, they were definitely read over. There would have been some quality control. It's just that they probably felt that these writers should be given what little room they had got within the format and within the word and the page count, just to sort of expand a little and to play a little and to sound like they've got their own voice rather than it all. Otherwise you might as well have put them all out under a pen name, haven't you?
Yes, and a lot of the Terence Dicks ones, bless him, as much as I adore those Terence Dicks novelizations, a lot of them are very, if anything, too faithful to the original. They are literally just a reworking of the script. But he still manages to do it. As I say, in some books he really goes for broke. So he can still do it. I think it's just as the time went on and he was under so much time pressure to keep churning them out, novel ended up pretty much putting the script into prose. But I'll read you one final little bit on this subject from Frontiers, Christopher H. Bidmead. Now, anybody that's seen the Frontiers, the cliffhanger to part 3, I don't think it's going to spoil it for anybody that hasn't seen it.
I was watching that last night.
Excavating machine rolling into camera view, and to say it's a disappointment is an understatement. It's not very good. The BBC, bless them. It's a cracking story, but bless them, the Excavation Machine doesn't really quite do all it needs.
Minimal, isn't it?
Well, it's minimal. The description here goes thus from Christopher H. Bidmead's book. It was a repellent sight, a huge and hideous assembly of parts of human bodies shaped something in the form of a giant tractator. White bones tipped with metal cutters scraped against the rock while rotting hands polished the smooth surface. Through illuminated windows in the body, Tegan glimpsed more mechanically gesticulating human arms and legs in an advanced state of decay. It was a machine built from the dead. Well, you know, it doesn't come much stronger than that, does it? Here we were 10, 11, 12 reading these books. And that's horror film stuff.
That episode last night, no joking, after a gap of several years. Yeah, and it's just...
I mean, that knocks, to be honest, it knocks the TV version hands down, doesn't it?
One guy in a wheelchair thing with a blank plate across the front. A great... I mean, they could do something really nice with that now, couldn't they? I've got something to read you here. It's very
go for it.
Because this book, not only is the cover one of my favourites, it's Ghostlight here by Mark Platt, big chunky book of a 3-part story. But I think this is one of Alistair Pearson's better covers. I like Alistair's work a lot, I do, but I think this was almost Art Nouveau-y. I don't know what you'd call it.
Yeah, I would agree. It's beautiful.
And it was number 149. But why this one means a lot to me is because I took this over to Coventry in 1990, where I met the cast and crew of Ghostlight, and it's signed by Frank Windsor, who played Inspector Mackenzie. Yeah,
brilliant.
There you go.
Very nice.
Not bad writing for a guy who's turned to soup. And inside, I've got it actually signed by the writer Mark Platt there, and the Mark Ayres, the guy who produced the incidental music and who's still
the music.
The BBC, the Radiophonic Workshop, just as they're known now, and does so much for Doctor Who, so much for it in so many different respects. Yeah, so that title, I never did that again. Never got any other one of them signed. I know people do this now with DVD sleeves and things like that. It was never something I was into, but the timing of that, it was not long after the story, say a year or so, and that was my favourite of the year at the time. It isn't now. But of course, it's having been the last story that was filmed,
recorded. Yeah,
recorded. It's got a certain sort of poetry to it. I quite like that's the one I've got signed.
And also, interestingly, that book in particular is another one that expands on the TV show and is far more palatable, as far as I'm concerned, than the TV show. The TV show is just so impenetrable. I just can't get through. Makes far more sense.
This includes all the bits that feel like they were left out when you watch it.
Correct.
That make a little bit more sense of it. I mean, whether you're probably not going to like the story anymore, but at least you'll be able to get it and get the underlying themes, I suppose. So yeah, the gift of literature.
The other thing that I think is fun, I don't know whether you have got, and I think you have the Doctor Who monthly Target special.
I have.
So anybody that hasn't got that yet and is intrigued by what we've been talking about now, you should absolutely go and invest in that, because it's a brilliant publication. And one of the articles in there that they've got that's really, really interesting is a section on the foreign editions of Target books, because of course these didn't just come out in the UK; they came out over various places all over the world. And there's some brilliant artwork in there as well. The one that really disturbs me is the Japanese version of the Auton invasion, which has got this sort of armless woman on. I mean, again, it's like something out of a horror film, of this woman with her arms it's sort chopped off.
It's sort of off at the waist, isn't it?
Correct.
It's really, really spooky.
Really disturbing. They've got a brilliant one of the Daleks. This is my favourite one, because the Japanese version of the Daleks actually translates. They rename some of them as well, and the Japanese version of the Daleks, as in the original William Hartnell Daleks, translates as space-time big bloody battle, which I just think is phenomenal. Who wouldn't want to read a book called Space-Time Big Bloody Battle? Does it for me. Definitely. So some of those, And then the US version of Day of the Daleks has got the famous unit spaceship on. And it's also got a three-armed Dalek on the cover.
Yeah,
it's got a three-armed Dalek that actually looks quite rude. If you look on page 41 of the DWM special, in the bottom corner of the Day of the Daleks cover, it actually looks quite rude.
Yes, I think that all those covers are fantastic. They've got their own dedicated logo as well, the American edition. So I think I've always thought that logo is beautiful. I mean,
Brilliant logo.
Perfectly fits the Tom Baker era. Probably only the Tom Baker era and only the middle of the Tom Baker era. But every single painting in that range is lovely. And I do like all those Japanese ones as well. A great many of the covers just delight me. I'd love to have a complete set. I'd probably have prints of some of those as well. You know, they're
yes,
absolute stunners. And again, the fact that I've heard people from different countries who didn't know there was a TV series called Doctor who did find the books first. And I remember hearing an interview, I think it was on a podcast, so it must have been hearing an interview, with one lady in particular who read all the books in her childhood in the 80s and didn't know there was a TV show until about 10 years ago. That's
Whoa.
it. You know, and it all just opened up. I mean, that must have been incredible. I mean, you know, it's never too late, is it? But can you just imagine?
That is incredible, isn't it? To have read all those books and love them as much as we obviously love them, and then discover that they can go and watch the TV shows of all of them. That's incredible. That really is a treasure trove.
And if I think we could easily come back to this whole subject a little later for another Type 40 on Target Books. It's going to happen. And if you're listening to this and you want to get involved, if you want to get in touch and send us a list of your favourite Target books, you want to come on and talk about them, reach out, get in touch with us, have your say. We'd like you to get involved. We'd love you to get involved. Target continues. Target's born again in a sense, and with Eric Saywood has novelised his two Dalek stories, hasn't he, this year? They're both coming out in hardback over the next few months. We're promised the Target paperbacks next year. I'll be waiting for those. I've got no interest in the hardbacks. I want them in paperback. The classic series is finally complete under the Target line. You have to wonder. I can't see. These things are selling. They are selling. They're one of the only items of Doctor Who merchandise that is selling. Have to get that in. But it's true. It's true. So you have to say they're not going to let it die. So what do you think's next, Simon? Do you think there'll be more new series titles like Rose? Or could there be original classic Doctor stories written in the style of Dix and Hulk and company? Would that be something you'd be interested in?
I'm really disappointed that the BBC did finish that range of original early Doctor adventures. I can't think what they were called. They used to do them each month, hadn't they, where they'd have an 8th Doctor adventure and it would alternate with an early Doctor adventure.
The PDAs, the Past Doctor Adventures.
Was that what it was? The Past Doctor Adventures? You could be right. And I really mourn the passing of those because some of them were fantastic books. I bought some of those. I read some of them. They're great. So I think I would love to see that back, whereby they start doing more Past Doctor Adventures. You're right. The more I think about it, it was Past Doctor Adventures. I'd love to see those back. And what was clever about them, that they used to write them in the style of the original shows that they were from. So the William Hartnell stories would feel, you could imagine it being a William Hartnell adventure on television. So they wrote them in the correct style. So I'd love to see those back again. I only
had a couple of those. I didn't stay with the line, and I sort of wish I had now, because people talk about them with such affection. You know, not on Target lines, but they certainly do. And yeah, I'm starting to read a little bit more, spurred on partly by reading Rose last year, I think it was, when that came out. But yeah, I'd be well up for that. As long as they clocked in at about no more than 130 to 140 pages, I'd be quite happy. Ideally with pictures, because I like my pictures and my comic books. That about closes us out this time on Type 40. We will be back soon again. Don't doubt that for a moment. And with Type Over 40, there'll be more videos and things from me. So if you want more videos, if you want more mucking about like this, come and join us in the Type 40 Facebook group. Watch out for us on YouTube and various other things that we try, and like our page and follow us on Instagram. But we'll be back for more standard podcasts. fairly soon. Keep an eye out for that, or an ear out, I should say, wherever you found this. Could have been on iTunes. If you come and search for the Fandom Podcast Network on iTunes, drop us a review while you're there, just so the new listeners can find us easier. It just makes it all a lot easier. If there's a few more stars, or you can go to the Fandom Podcast Network master feed at fpnet.podbean.com, or on Stitcher, Google Play, or on Spotify. I've been Dan. My thanks to Simon, as always. You want to plug your social media again for anybody who's forgotten?
Find me on the Facebook page for The Hoonatics, Doctor Who, The Hoonatics. Just search there, and I'm an admin. Come and say hello.
And our thanks to you for listening. Join us again next time here on the Fandom Podcast Network for another episode of Type 40, a Doctor Who podcast where we always have the time if you have the space on your bookshelf.